Hey there, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about perks. So in our previous couple videos, we talked about operators, we talked about building loadouts with kill streaks and your field upgrades. We touched a little bit on the perks, but we're going to dig into the perks and why it ultimately matters for you. Perks really do change how you play the game. This is one of the most common things I get questions about. I hear it all the time with people I play with. It's like, how did that person know I was there? How did they see me? How did I die? How did they know? Honestly, Activision, Call of Duty, they've worked pretty hard, especially in this edition of Call of Duty, at reducing the number of cheaters in the game. It's never going to be without its cheaters. There's people that just want to have an advantage all the time that for whatever reasons it's their jam and the rest of us have to kind of deal with it. But there are things that you can do to increase your ability to play the game and be very competitive while you do it. Keeping in mind that probably the bulk of the time when you die and you have no idea how that person knew you were there, saw you, so on and so forth, is because of the perks that are in the game today. The perks have really changed. They've spent a lot of time thinking about the different variations of one perk versus another perk, what can counter something versus counter something else. We're going to talk about that. So, what we're going to do to get started is we're going to head on over to your weapon loadout. So, that's right here at the top. And in your weapon loadout, you just need to pick one of your loadouts. Doesn't matter really which one. Keeping in mind, you need to be level 4 or 5 to be able to build a loadout in the first place, as we talked about in the previous video. I'm going to just pick this one, and then just below your weapons, you have perk options. There's 3 different categories of perks. We're going to start with the first one. They don't really have labels for them. But in the first one, we're going to talk about the different perks that are in here, and then we'll go kind of through each category. Serpentine showed up just with the latest holiday patch that came out just before the holidays. It does what it says it does. It reduces the incoming damage while you're sprinting. To be honest, I haven't noticed a huge benefit of using this particular perk. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. I think it's really designed more for Warzone, which we'll talk about later on. It does help a little bit, but probably not at the cost of some of the other perks that are available in this particular category. And we're going to go through them. But Serpentine, at its base level, as long as you're sprinting, will reduce some of the damage that you're taking. Fortified, this is great, especially if you play objective type games. So, as long as you're playing domination or hardpoint, things of that nature, you're just simply going to take less damage from explosives. Does it matter? Probably to a degree it does. You may or may not feel that it's worth taking over some of the other things. But if you want to make sure that while you're capturing that point, people are throwing a lot of bombs, a lot of grenades, throwing stuff on there, this is a way to at least give you that little extra survivability while you're on there. Survival training. Now, the difference between survival training and Dauntless, which we'll talk about, I'm going to skip the Dauntless after this one. You can see here it says maximizes the resistance to stun effects. It doesn't mean you're immune to them. So if somebody throws a flash grenade or somebody throws a stun grenade, you are still going to have some degree of suppression from that stuff. You're still going to feel the effect. But with the gas grenades in this version of Call of Duty, the gas grenades, they make cough or choke. It takes you away from being able to aim down sight and just slows you down a little bit. It makes you immune to the gas, but not completely immune to the stun effects. So that's important to keep in mind. When you go to Dauntless, Dauntless makes you immune to the movement reducing effects, such as gas and a stun grenade. So you have to kind of pick which of the two you want to ultimately live with. I prefer Dauntless just because I find not a lot of people run gas grenades. They typically run stun or flash grenades, and I just feel that this is the better option in the two, especially when you're working on small maps like Shipment or DOS House, or Hotel Royale, things of that nature. So you kind of got to pick. It depends on your flavor, what kit you're ultimately building it with, but just keep in mind that survival training is about gas and Dauntless is about stun effects. Ninja. This is probably predominantly for those people that play hardcore or Warzone a lot. This reduces the sound of your feet. Not that you get a lot of sound effects from feet movement in this. You hear your own feet more than you do anybody else's, and oftentimes you hardly ever hear people. And I know a lot of people aren't running Ninja these days because it's just not worth it over some of the other options that are out there. But depends, again, game type and situation. Ninja can be very, very effective at making sure that you move very quietly and you can jump off pretty much anything, which has its benefits as well if you like to hang out in tall buildings or on trees. The other thing with Ninja is, as it says here, tracker perks, which we'll talk about a minute in the next category. It reduces the effectiveness, meaning they just don't know where you are. It gives you a little bit more stealthy ability. Ghost is one of my personal favorites. Ghost is people are putting up spy planes all the time, or UAVs for those people that played previous Call of Duties. Um, Ghost keeps you off of those. There's an important piece to know here. While moving, if you are camping, if you are sitting in the same spot for any length of time, Ghost is useless to you. It doesn't do anything for you. If you're camping, you're still going to show up on the minimap. So you got to remember to keep moving while using Ghost. It also, you need to remember when using Ghost, you need to use weapons that have flash hiders or silencers on the weapons. If you don't have either of those things and you're playing core versus hardcore, hardcore a little different, doesn't have the minimap all the time, but for core, if you are not using a flash hider and you're not using a silencer, you are still going to show up on the minimap every time you pull the trigger. A lot of people forget this. This is one of these how'd the person know I was there scenario. This is one of those. Don't forget. When it says it reduces the effectiveness of local informants, that's one of the field upgrades we talked about that is just a circular area. I don't even really worry about that so much. It probably helps to a degree, maybe more than I even recognize, but not that many people are running local informants. However, they are always using spy planes, and so you need to make sure that you are really keeping track of that. And just to show you, we will go back real quick to the field upgrades section. Sorry, not the field upgrades. Kill and local informants is here as an end perk scenario. So if you've got Ghost on, it reduces the effectiveness. And what that means is instead of it just being a dot on a mini map, it ultimately shows you which direction you're tracking. Right? They'll show you where you're running, where you're headed. So if you're using Ghost, it reduces its effectiveness. That doesn't mean it takes it completely out of the game. So just keep in mind, Ghost is really a top tier option as long as you are moving. Don't be camping. Now, Cold Blooded, another major one. This one works well in many, many scenarios. If you're constantly getting targeted by AI, so people are dropping those glide bombers on you, right? We've all been victims of those glide bombers that land on your head. This takes the red box off you. When they're looking top down, this takes the red box off you. If they have a strafe run coming in, it makes it harder for them to be able to see you on the map. Doesn't mean they can't see you. You can still look. The trained eye can still see movement on the map, and they will go for you sometimes, but it just makes it harder, and they're likely to go for somebody that's got a red box over you. The other thing about this that's key, and we're going to talk about in a moment, is High Alert. High Alert is another perk in the other category we're going to talk about, but you don't trigger High Alert when you have Cold Blooded on. A lot of people run High Alert, and you'll understand why in a moment that they do that. It really is a heads up advantage of who's looking at you in the direction that they're looking at you from. So make sure that you use Cold-Blooded and or Ghost. Take your pick. People have their preference. The other thing that makes here, especially for snipers, if you use Cold-Blooded, your nameplate doesn't show up as quickly at range. This is important because when you're sniping, you're probably camping to some degree. You're hanging out in a particular area. You've got an elevation. You've got a nice spot that you've got selected. You probably don't want Ghost when you're running a sniper. You probably want to be using Cold-Blooded instead. Keep yourself off of people's line of sight with that awareness marker, and to make sure that you're not triggering Higher Alert and the kill streaks. So those are your first tier categories. Your second tier categories are really more focused on how do you see people, right? And keeping in mind that's balanced by on this, how do you keep people from seeing you, right? So if I was going to label these, it's keep people from seeing me, how do I see people? And the last one's really going to be make sure that I got all the stuff that I need to be able to keep going. So this category is really how do I see people better? Intuition, not used a lot. It just pulses when people are around you. It's okay if you're using, say, like a submachine gun or a shotgun or something close range and you're running around a lot. Intuition may be a good option for you just to notify you that there's still people around. That is often important. But it's probably not worth taking over some of the other options that are out there, and we're going to talk about them. Tracker, one of the first things that you unlock, you maybe have seen enemy footprints on the ground. That's what this does. Um, it's okay. Often, by the time you get to the end of the footprint trail, like the footprints have stopped and they've long since run off to somewhere else. It does have its uses on smaller maps, but there are other options that are just better out there. The nice part about this is that when you kill an enemy in core, you put up that skull shows up above their head when they die. This will keep the skull from showing up. Again, probably not at losing one of the other options. Radar is good. Enemies appear on your minimap when they fire an unsilenced weapon. If you're playing core, they generally speaking show up anyways. But if you want to take it, this does just boost it and gives you a really keen sense of where things are and who's shooting what where. But if they're using a silenced weapon, you're not going to see them anyways. So keep that in mind. Probably not worth taking. High alert, one of the best things that you can see out there. You see people use it all the time. I see people using it in Warzone as well. High alert is really great. It pulses when people are outside of your vision. You will see like a yellow or amber glow on the edge of your screen, kind of in the direction that you are being spotted from, similar to when you're taking fire. That you will be able to kind of get a sense of where they are. It doesn't show you exactly where they are, but you will at least know which way you should be looking and understand if you need to take cover, if you feel like you're out in the open and exposed, or if you think you can turn in a closed area and get a good shot off. Now, oftentimes people ask, how do I know? How did they know I was there? They know you were there because you've already triggered high alert, and this thing works like crazy, right? You need to understand how well this works. Like there's times where I have not even seen the enemy and it has gone off, and I've seen it in the kill cam, and they will get a trigger of a high alert because they were in my line of sight, but I never saw them, and then they will just turn around and shoot me. It doesn't mean they're in the wide open. It means that they were off on a corner, maybe a little further away than I anticipated them to be, and they got a trigger and they turn around and they hit me, and I go, how the heck did they know I was there? So high alert is one of those things that is often going to be confused with somebody knowing you are there and they shouldn't know you are there. Keep that in mind. Engineer, this used to be much more effective, in past iterations. It's not used so much anymore because just people aren't using as many claymores or like stationary type equipment. You could hack like the trip mines and things of that nature that are out there. It's just not used very often because they don't have a lot of like stationary equipment that people put down. But if you want to use it, it's kind of fun. You can take it, you can hack the enemy's equipment, change their proximity alert mine to your own, and or trip mine to your own, and boom, it's yours now. And if they walk on it, they're going to be in trouble. But again, maybe not at the expense of some of the other options that are here. You could hack their field upgrades, which would be like their ammo cart. You could hack their if they're using one of the portable radars or they're using one of the portable jammers, you could hack that stuff. Again, people just don't take that stuff often enough. I don't think for it to be worthwhile. But if you enjoy it, please let me know how you've been successful with that and how effective it has been. Forward intel, this is one of the cheesiest things you will have in this game. Honestly, especially on small maps, DOS House and Shipment, I run this with like a submachine gun build or even a shotgun build. It is fantastic. You actually see where the people spawn. And because the map is so small, you know exactly where they have spawned and you can just make your way there. And your mini map, as it says, shows a larger area, which means that you can fit more of it onto the screen. You know exactly where people are spawning and which direction you should be heading. It is it is crazy good. I honestly, on a small map, would take this probably over pretty much everything else. Other than the last one I'm going to talk about is piercing vision. Piercing vision is that thing, you've probably seen it. It highlights the enemy in orange. You've often probably been shot through a wall and have no idea how somebody knew you were there. I do this personally all the time. It works very, very well with assault rifles and LMGs. Not so great with SMGs, although it works. Even sniper rifles, it works as well. But if you suppressed the enemy, meaning you've shot in their area and they know that they're being shot at, it will highlight them in orange, and you can see them behind pretty much anything. And what that means is you can keep shooting at them even though they're behind stuff, especially if you run FMJ on your kit. So full metal jacket rounds with the piercing vision, and you can shoot through most walls in this game. I actually use a DP27 on a regular basis with an additional proficiency that called disable that increases the level of suppression, so it's more likely to make somebody suppressed. And I run FMJ rounds, and I will just continuously wall bang walls where I think people will be. And often I will get kills through things that I should not be able to know people are there. This is back to, how do people know I am there? I randomly shoot at walls all the time. If you're playing shipment, you can shoot through most of the crates that are on shipment, get orange markers, and it highlights for your whole team. It highlights for your whole team, so they can shoot at it too. It is fantastic. So I recommend piercing vision in many scenarios and forward intel for the smaller maps, just so you know where everybody's spawning. If you have any questions, or if you've had different experiences that you want to chat about or provide your info on, we'd love to hear from you. Make sure you let us know. Third bucket. So the first one is keep people from seeing me. Second bucket is see people better. Third bucket is really just what are some things that I can have from a tactical perspective to help me do a little bit better. Double time. This is effective if you're trying to race to different points. It's really more of a Warzone thing if you want to really make sure you're running faster and you have that extra sprint time. Outside of that, it does increase the crouch movement speed. So if you're playing hardcore or something like that, or search and destroy, and it's really about being stealthy, being sneaky, this will allow you to move a little bit faster, which often can be the difference between life and death. Demolition, it's very simple. You get to throw extra throwables. Yep. So you get extra tactical equipment and extra grenades. That's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. You just get more. So you get 2 grenades, you get 2 stun grenades. Boom, done. Not sure it's worth taking in most scenarios, but maybe you have a preference. Lightweight is great. I usually put this on a SMG or a shotgun build, again, for smaller maps if I want to move very fast, especially combined with the forward intel where I'm trying to sprint to their spawn constantly over and over again. And I want to cover a lot of ground quickly. Lightweight, the difference between it and double time is lightweight is constant, about 10% increase in movement speed. You are always just simply moving faster. Whereas double time, once you've used it, that's it, and you need to wait a while before you can use double time again. Whereas lightweight, you're just constantly moving at a faster speed. Overkill, so this one you get to carry 2 primary weapons. What does that mean? So often you have to take SMG, assault rifle, LMG, and then you have to pick a launcher, pistol, right, or a melee weapon. With Overkill, you get to run 2 weapons. So I think most of you probably know this, maybe the newer players don't. With Overkill, you get to run 2 primary weapons. So often when this is done, you'll do it to take, say, an SMG and maybe a sniper rifle, or you'll take an assault rifle and, maybe an LMG. Really, any combination is fine. I use this for a different build where I will take a shield, plus I will also take, like an SMG. So I have 2 primary weapons with me and the ability to stand on a point for domination and take some damage. It really is situational. Also works very well in Warzone early on. in Warzone, when you first get that first loadout drop and you want two good weapons, it's really great and very useful to use to be able to call in your primary weapon and then have like a backup sniper rifle or whatever that may be. So keep that in mind, but it's at the expense of some of the other things that you ultimately want or need. Tactician, this is great again in different scenarios. If you feel that you have good longevity in your gameplay, basically your stun grenade or flash grenade is going to recycle every 30 seconds. This can be helpful again in Warzone, again in longer matches where you're playing different points, or if you're playing like search and destroy, things of that nature, and you want to just throw it to try and stun somebody. 30 seconds later, it's going to respawn. You get another one back. Pretty straightforward. Scavenger, one of my preferred favorites. I probably use 99% of the time in this category. I tend to live a little longer than most people, and I go through ammo, quite a bit of ammo, especially depending on the loadout or the kit that I'm using. And this means that when I kill somebody, it replenishes the ammo that I have used, or I pick up ammo from the dead players. It keeps me from having to search around for that teammate that has an ammo box, and it also means I don't have to carry an ammo box. I can actually use dead drop that we talked about in the field upgrade section, right? So dead drop keeps your score streaks instead of taking the ammo box, and scavenger makes sure that you ultimately continue to pick up ammo. There's another thing in your weapon loadout in one of the, it's not the proficiency, it's the other thing. Let's go back and check. I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's in your kit. In your kit, you can take fully loaded and it will start you with max ammo. So if you're doing that, it may not make sense to you to ultimately use. It may not make sense to you to use scavenger. You may decide that it is better off to go with overkill. So you have the two weapons. I have a couple friends that do that. It really is personal preference to make sure that you've got enough ammo and you've got it built the right way. So that's my, I won't call it a rant or my mini session on perks. There's a lot of them and there's a lot to know. If you have questions, leave your comments, ask your questions. Happy to provide more detail. And I'm going to show a lot of these as we get into the game and talk about how they work, how I use them, and the different loadouts that they ultimately come with. In the meantime, hope that you're enjoying what you're seeing and stay safe.